Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really digging into a pivotal moment. It's from 2 Chronicles Chapter 10. We're right at the start of Rehoboam's time as king, just after Solomon.
Yeah, it's a really charged moment, actually. Solomon's reign, it was grand, but it came at a cost for the people, a heavy cost. So when Rehoboam steps up, everyone's wondering, okay, what now? Is he going to be different?
Exactly, and the chapter kicks off with the people gathering. Not just for a coronation, though. They come with Jeroboam leading them, and they have a very specific ask for Rehoboam.
This is the crux of it, really. They lay it out pretty plainly. Your father made our yoke grievous. Basically, life was hard under Solomon. Now, therefore, ease thou somewhat the grievous servitude and his heavy yoke, and we will serve thee.
So they're not beating around the bush. They're saying, look, the workload, the taxes, it was too much. Give us a break, and you'll have our loyalty. Seems reasonable, right?
It does seem reasonable. And Rehoboam, he doesn't just shoot from the hip. He says, give me 3 days. Let me think about this. Which, sounds promising initially. It suggests he might actually weigh the options.
Right, and he does seek counsel from two very distinct groups. First, there are the older men, the ones who'd advised his father, Solomon. What do they tell him?
Well, the elders gave him what sounds like really sound advice. They said, essentially, if you are kind to this people and please them and speak good words to them, they will be thy servants forever.
Be kind, speak well, earn their loyalty for the long haul. It's about relationship, isn't it?
Exactly. It's servant leadership, in a way. Treat them well and they'll stick with you. It's smart.
But then,
Ugh.
and he turns to his own peers, the younger guys he grew up with, and their advice.
Oh, completely different direction. Total opposite. They seem to think that the way to go is brute force. Assert dominance immediately. Their advice was pretty shocking, actually. My little finger shall be thicker than my father's loins, implying, I'm much tougher. And whereas my father put a heavy yoke upon you, I will put more to your yoke. My father chastised you with whips, but I will chastise you with scorpions.
Scorpions. I mean, that's not just saying no. That's like pouring salt in the wound and then adding threats. It's incredibly aggressive.
It really is. It suggests maybe insecurity, a desire to look strong, whatever the reason. It's incredibly harsh counsel, a total rejection of the elders' wisdom.
So the 3 days are up. Rehoboam faces the people, and he makes his choice.
He does, and he follows the young men's script almost word for word. Tells the people, my father made your yoke heavy, but I will add thereto. My father chastised you with whips, but I will chastise you with scorpions.
And the reaction. I imagine it wasn't good.
Not good is an understatement. It was immediate, explosive, really. The people basically said, okay, if that's how it is, we're out. The scripture quotes them. What portion have we in David? We have none inheritance in the son of Jesse. Every man to your tents, O Israel.
To your tents. That's it. The kingdom splits right there.
Right there. The northern 10 tribes break away. They make Jeroboam their king. Rehoboam is left with just Judah and Benjamin in the south. A divided kingdom just like that.
And it gets even worse, doesn't it? There's that incident with Hadoram.
Yes, Rehoboam tries to assert his authority, maybe collect the tribute or enforce the labor. He sends Hadoram, who was in charge of that very labor they were protesting, and the people. They stone him to death. It shows the level of anger, the complete breakdown of authority.
Rehoboam himself has to run for his life back to Jerusalem. It's a total disaster born from one terrible decision.
Absolutely. And then there's that fascinating verse 15.
Right, where it says, so the king did not listen to the people, for the cause was of God, that the Lord might perform his word. The word spoken through Ahijah the prophet to Jeroboam earlier.
Exactly. It adds this layer of divine sovereignty. It doesn't let Rehoboam off the hook for his arrogance and poor choice.
No, not at all.
But it frames it within God's larger plan. It suggests God was working his purposes even through this human failure.
That's quite profound. It means even in the midst of terrible leadership and division, something bigger is unfolding.
Which brings us to, what can we learn from this today? How does this ancient story speak to us, maybe even strengthen our faith?
Well, the first thing that jumps out is the danger of ignoring wise counsel, right? Especially counsel rooted in experience and maybe godly wisdom.
Absolutely. Rehoboam had good advice available. He just chose not to take it. It's a huge lesson in humility, being willing to listen to others, especially those who know more or see things differently.
And for our faith, it encourages us to actually seek out that kind of counsel, doesn't it? Pray for wisdom, yes, but also to talk to trusted, mature people when we face big decisions.
Definitely. And then there's the contrast between the two approaches, kindness and good words versus threats and harshness.
The elders' advice was essentially about servant leadership, build connection. The young men's advice was about power through fear.
And look at the results. One path offered unity, the other brought immediate division and violence. It really underscores how much our tone, our approach to others, matters.
It makes you think about how we lead in our own lives, families, workplaces, communities. Are we building up with kindness or, trying to rule through force or intimidation?
Yeah. And seeing the consequences of Rehoboam's pride is a powerful warning. Pride blinded him. It stopped him listening. It led directly to disaster.
That resonates today, for sure. How often does pride get in the way of making good choices or mending relationships? Recognizing that pattern in Scripture can help us check our own hearts.
And that point about God's sovereignty, that God's purpose was still being worked out, that's actually incredibly strengthening for faith, I think.
How so?
Well, it reminds us that even when things look chaotic, even when leaders fail or decisions have terrible consequences, God isn't caught by surprise. He's still working his ultimate plan.
So it offers hope, even in messy situations.
Exactly. It gives us a bigger perspective. It encourages trust in God's overarching control, even when human actions seem to be making a mess of things. It means our hope isn't ultimately in human leaders, but in God.
That's a really important distinction. So reflecting on Rehoboam helps us value wise counsel, choose kindness, watch out for pride, and trust in God's bigger picture.
Precisely. It shows how choices have real lasting consequences, and it motivates us to lean on God's wisdom, not just our own impulses or the pressures around us.
So wrapping up this deep dive into 2 Chronicles 10, the core message seems clear. Leadership and just living well really needs humility, wisdom, and empathy. Trying to dominate often backfires.
Whereas listening, seeking godly wisdom, and leading with integrity, that's what builds something lasting. It reflects God's way.
Definitely. So here's something for you to think about. Consider a time you were facing a choice and got different kinds of advice, maybe conflicting advice. How did you weigh it? What influenced your final decision? And thinking about Rehoboam now, how might his story, his failure, shape how you approach seeking and evaluating counsel in the future, especially leaning on God's wisdom?